Hi, I'm Emma. And to be honest, I don't really believe in all that romantic nonsense about love at first sight and the spark that ignites in your heart. No, seriously, I'd gladly conduct an experiment and measure the electricity levels in the bodies of everyone who claims they felt a lightning strike when they met someone. But apparently in my family, romance is a curse. Thanks, Dad. My dad is an acting coach and he has his own theory. Love is like a scene from a dramatic play, full of fire and emotions. He always tells the story of how he fell in love with my mom. He was directing a student play. She walked into rehearsal, and that was it. Curtain call, standing ovation, end of story. Except then came the disastrous second act, full of family fights. And my mom, who was a successful architect, simply walked out of the script. No explanations, no final monologue. Well, actually, there was a final monologue, but unfortunately, it wasn't directed at us. I remember that night as if it were yesterday. Dad was standing in the kitchen, heating up mac and cheese, the dish I had long dubbed divorced Dad's dinner. He looked tense, but smiled like he was trying to hide the fact that he was about to fall apart. And then, we heard the sound of heels clicking in the hallway. Mom stood in the doorway, holding a small bag. She looked perfect, as always, like she was heading to an important meeting. Except this time, the meeting was with her new life, one that no longer included me and Dad.
Emma,
She said, locking eyes with me.
you're a strong girl. You'll be okay.
Then she looked at Dad. I saw his jaw clench, bracing for impact.
That's it?
He asked.
Just, you'll be okay?
Mom sighed but said nothing. She turned, opened the door, and left. No hugs, no goodbye, no explanations. Just like that. I stared at the hallway, hoping she'd come back, that this was just some bad rehearsal for a play. But the door never opened again. So, when I was 12, our play turned into a one-act show called Emma and Her Dad vs. the World. Dad buried himself in teaching, and I buried myself in my dream of becoming an actress. Life moved forward. Until one day, a disaster of cosmic proportions struck. Lucas fell in love with me. Lucas was one of the most popular guys in school. He was into acting, had a perfect jawline, and smiled like he belonged on a toothpaste commercial. And he fell in love with me after I accidentally spilled chocolate ice cream on him. Yes, you heard that right. It all started at my house on a totally normal evening. I was in the kitchen enjoying a well-deserved bowl of ice cream when the doorbell rang. I opened it, and of course, there was Lucas.
Hey, Emma,
He said with that perfect, dazzling smile.
is your dad home?
I nodded, but before I could say anything, he walked right in, like he had always lived there. Hey, this is not a museum tour, I protested. But Lucas was already admiring our old fireplace and Dad's collection of theater posters.
Wow, your house is like a shrine to acting legends.
He said enthusiastically. I rolled my eyes and turned back to my ice cream. But as I took a step, I tripped over Dad's backpack, wobbled on one foot, and in a slow-motion movie moment, my spoonful of ice cream flew into the air and landed directly on Lucas's head. Chocolate ice cream dripped down his perfect face, and I froze in horror. He blinked, wiped his hand across his hair, and looked at me with admiration.
Hey, Emma, I love you.
And I was like, what? But here was the problem. I didn't feel anything for him. No fireworks, no sparks, no sudden rush of emotion. Zero. That didn't stop Lucas, though. From that day on, he started his mission to win my heart. He brought me flowers, with bees inside, baked me brownies after I said I loved vegetables, invited me to an amusement park. I faked dizziness on the Ferris wheel. He even asked my dad for permission to date me. Seriously? Dad, of course, went full theatrical.
Great, kid. I need 4 sheep, 5 cows, and 1 unicorn in exchange for my daughter's hand.
But Lucas wouldn't give up. And when he showed up outside my house with the speaker, like some 80s rom-com hero, blasting a dramatic love song, I knew I had to do something fast. While he stood there, hoping I'd melt, all I wanted was a remote to turn it off. Dad, watching from the window, just sighed theatrically and said,
Okay, this is too much.
That's when I realized I couldn't break his heart. Operation Find Lucas a Girlfriend. Turns out, finding Lucas a girlfriend was like winning the lottery with a ripped ticket. First, I introduced him to Olivia, but she just wanted to make her ex jealous. Fail. Then there was Maddie. They went to a trivia night together but fought over the best pizza toppings. Complete disaster. And finally, Julia. She was interested in me. She ignored Lucas completely. Seriously? I was ready to give up until a new exchange student, Sophia, arrived. She was quiet but breathtakingly beautiful. When Sophia and Lucas met for the first time, I physically felt the air crackle between them. This was it. I set up accidental encounters, locked them in the library together, hinted that they had so much in common, but they were both too shy. So I went all in. I planned a romantic date at a waterfall and sent them anonymous notes. They showed up thinking the other had invited them. Genius. I was about to leave when I felt something strange on my ankle. I looked down. A raccoon, hanging onto my leg. I screamed and ran straight into Lucas and Sophia, ruining their perfect moment.
Emma!
Oh, hey, I was just taking a walk. Alone. At night. In the woods. But they were so cute together that I finally admitted everything. I told them about my plan. And you know what happened? They thanked me. And kissed. Operation. Lucas plus Sophia? Success. But here's the twist. Now that Lucas had a girlfriend, I suddenly felt lonely. And just as I was wondering what would happen next, fate threw me a curveball. Enter Elias. One day, sitting in the cafeteria, zoning out over my depressing lunch, a bun and a juice box, the diet of champions, right? I felt the entire room shift. That moment when the air vibrates with tension. I looked up, and there he was. Tall, mysterious, dangerous, or just a guy who walked into the wrong school and had no idea where to go. But my brain loves drama, so let's go with mysterious stranger with a magnetic gaze. That was Elias. The guy who appeared out of nowhere sat in the farthest corner and instantly became the center of the universe for half the girls in school. Everyone whispered about him. Who is he? Where is he from? Does he have a girlfriend? How many followers does he have? Is he secretly a prince? Mission: get Elias's attention. I took a deep breath and walked up to him, my nerves tightening like a coiled spring. It was just a conversation. Just a new student. Just another day. But something about him made the air feel thicker, made words harder to form. Hey, I exhaled, hoping my voice wouldn't betray my nerves. Elias looked up. Calm, assessing, too observant. His eyes weren't mocking, but they weren't warm either.
Hey,
He said, his voice even, making a shiver run down my spine. I panicked and blurted out the first thing that came to mind. So, do you like cheese? Brilliant. Just brilliant. His eyebrows lifted slightly in surprise, then a shadow of amusement flickered across his face.
if this is your way of asking about my food preferences, then yes.
He said, lips twitching.
Though I admit I wasn't expecting that to be the first question.
I mentally face-palmed. And just like that, my life got a whole lot more complicated. I clenched my teeth, silently cursing my awkwardness. Yeah, I'm a master of first impressions, I muttered, rolling my eyes. Just wait, my next question will be even better. Elias raised an eyebrow, clearly amused.
In that case, now I'm intrigued.
Damn. I had just trapped myself. And right when I was about to admit total defeat, Grayson entered my life. Grayson, the unexpected twist. You know how in movies there's always that character? The one who annoys you at first, but then, out of nowhere, boom, he turns out to be the real prince? That was Grayson. Grayson was Sophia's older brother, and for some reason she was determined to set us up. Meanwhile, I was too busy trying to win Elias's attention to care. Grayson was my total opposite. Serious, reserved, a little distant, and way too calm for my liking. In other words, nothing like the guys I was used to. Then, at a party one night, while I was, yet again, staring at Elias, Grayson sat down next to me and said,
If you're going to keep staring at him all night, at least try to be less obvious.
okay, that's how he earned my eternal hatred. But then, things got chaotic. At first, it was just coincidences. We kept ending up in the same places at the weirdest times, as if the universe was playing some kind of joke on me. One time, we accidentally got locked in a storage closet. A tiny, dark space filled with old stage props and a suspiciously large jar of pickles. I knocked on the door. No response. Great, I sighed, turning to Grayson. The perfect way to spend an evening. Leaning against the wall, he smirked.
If you suggest acting out a dramatic scene, I'm out.
I rolled my eyes and looked around. Okay, I needed a plan. In my field of vision, an old broom, duct tape, a pile of dust, and, again, why? A jar of pickles. All right, let's try something else, I muttered, grabbing the broom and aiming it at the door handle. Grayson watched me with barely hidden amusement.
You seriously think you'll open the door with a broom?
I shrugged. You got a better idea? 10 minutes later, after multiple failed attempts and one runaway pickle jar rolling across the floor, someone finally let us out. I walked out with my head held high, pretending I didn't see Grayson grinning behind me. But that was just the beginning. Another time, I was trying to avoid an extremely awkward conversation with Elias. He had caught me by the lockers, staring at me like he was about to say something important. My heart was pounding, my mind was screaming for an escape, and then right on cue, Grayson appeared. Without hesitation, he grabbed my hand and looking straight at Elias said,
Sorry, we're late for something.
I barely had time to blink before he pulled me down the hallway. When we turned a corner, I finally found my voice. What was that? Grayson shrugged, like it was the most obvious thing in the world.
You looked like you needed an exit. I gave you one.
I stared at him, unsure whether to be grateful or furious. And that's why you decided to act like we're dating?
That was just a bonus.
He smirked. My heart did something weird, a sort of annoying, fluttery skip. Something was definitely going wrong. And of course, while I was trying to figure out my own feelings, fate decided to throw another curveball. The love triangle. Yeah, another cliche, but what can you do? Just when I started admitting that maybe Grayson wasn't that annoying, that maybe his sarcastic comments were actually kind of funny, and that maybe I didn't mind having him around, Elias started paying attention to me. No, seriously, what kind of rule is this? For months, I had been trying to get his attention. I had been watching, waiting, hoping he'd notice me. And now? Now, when I had stopped looking in his direction, he suddenly decided I was interesting. And the worst part? Neither of them seemed willing to back down. Elias started showing up around me more. Whether by chance or on purpose, I didn't know. But his eyes lingered on me just a little longer than before. Grayson? He wasn't backing down either. Like he sensed the competition. He was always there. Calm, but close enough to make sure I knew he was there. One of them was the guy I had been chasing for ages. The other was the guy making me question what I actually wanted. And the truth? I didn't know what I wanted. But the more I thought about it, the clearer one thing became. And as for Elias, for so long I had been chasing his attention. I had convinced myself that if I could just catch his eye, if he could just talk to me, everything would change. But the more I tried, the more I realized. I didn't like him. I liked the idea of him. The mystery, the distance, the challenge. He was beautiful, he was untouchable, but there was no spark between us. And then one day he came to me.
You've changed your mind, haven't you?
Elias asked, looking directly into my eyes. I blinked. About what?
About me.
My heart didn't race. No butterflies, just clarity. I laughed. Light, nervous, but with an unexpected sense of relief. Yeah, you're a great guy, but this isn't our story. Elias nodded, the corner of his lips twitching into a small smile.
I figured.
He said.
At least now everything's honest.
And you know what? I felt lighter. Because sometimes we don't fall for a person. We fall for what they represent. And once you realize that, you're free. Acting, friends, and the final disaster. While I was still figuring out my feelings, Hollywood literally came knocking at my door. Trevor, a real Hollywood agent, saw me in one of my school plays and told me I had potential.
You could be the next big thing,
He said, waving a contract in front of me.
but you'll have to choose career or personal life.
It sounded like a classic teenage dilemma, but I actually thought about it. I had always dreamed of being an actress. But if I chose my career, what would happen to Grayson? To Elias? To my friends? Then, out of nowhere, life hit me with a real problem. My dad was hospitalized. The second I walked into that hospital room, all the silly worries about romance and career choices vanished. Dad was lying there, motionless, his hands so expressive when he taught acting, still against the white hospital sheets. I sat beside him, my heart heavy. I had been chasing so many things: success, attention, validation. But the one person who had always seen me, he had been sitting in the front row all along. I reached for his hand and whispered, "You were right. This whole time." His fingers twitched. I froze. A moment later, his eyelids fluttered.
Of course I was.
He mumbled, still half asleep.
I'm an acting coach. We're always right.
I let out a shaky laugh, my eyes burning with warmth. And in that moment, I knew. It didn't matter what roles I played in the future. Because my most important audience was already here. And that was everything. Everything suddenly made sense. All my problems suddenly felt so small. At that moment, I realized there's nothing more important than family and friends. And when my friends, even Lucas and Sophia, came to support me, it hit me. Fame wasn't everything. I turned down the contract. But for the first time in a long while, I wondered, what comes next? A few months later, I was offered a completely different project, a theater production based on my own script. I watched from the audience as the actors rehearsed the final scene, a mix of excitement and nervous energy swirling in my chest. Then a familiar voice broke my thoughts.
Not bad, but something's missing.
I turned. Grayson. He was smirking. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? And what would that be? He leaned in slightly.
Maybe a little romance.
He teased. I laughed. The curtain was closing on one chapter of my life. But my story? It was only just beginning.